They decided my future in a room where my name was spoken like a problem to be solved. They laughed when I tried to speak. They said, "This is final," as if the word could glue me in place. I nodded like I agreed. And that was the moment everything shifted. My name is Claire Morgan. I'm 32, the oldest daughter in a family that mistakes volume for authority and tradition for love. The meeting happened in my parents' dining room, long oak table, polished to a shine that reflected every forced smile back at us. My mother sat at the head, fingers laced like a judge. My father leaned back, arms crossed, already bored. My younger brother, Ethan, scrolled on his phone, occasionally snorting at private jokes I wasn't invited into. They had called it a family discussion. I should have known better. "We've talked it through," my mother said, not looking at me. "This is what's best for everyone." Best for everyone never included me. It never had. They talked over me when I asked what exactly had been decided. My father waved a hand like he was swatting a fly. Ethan laughed and said, "Relax, Claire. You always make things dramatic." What they were deciding without asking was my job, my apartment, and my time. They wanted me to move back home, leave my position at the firm, and help temporarily with the family business while Ethan pursued his real opportunities. Temporary, in my family, meant forever. I felt something hot rise in my chest, then cool into something sharper. I watched their mouths move. I listened to words like sacrifice, duty, family first. I noticed how no one asked what I wanted. Not once. My mother slid a thin folder across the table toward me. Inside were printed plans, schedules, even a resignation letter already drafted, with my name typed neatly at the bottom. "We just need you to sign," she said softly, "so we can move forward." That was the laughable part. They thought ink was power. I picked up the pen. Their shoulders relaxed. Ethan finally looked up. I nodded.
"Come."
Agreeable. Familiar.
"But I didn't sign."
I closed the folder, stood up, and smiled just enough to confuse them. "I need some air," I said. As I walked toward the door, my father called after me, annoyed, "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I didn't turn around, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away defeated. I was walking away informed, and they had no idea what I'd just decided. I didn't go far. I sat in my car with the engine off, hands on the steering wheel, staring at my parents' front door like it might open and swallow me back inside. My phone buzzed, 3 messages from my mother before I'd even reached the end of the driveway. "Don't be childish. We're doing this for you. Come back in and sign." That was the pattern. Pressure disguised as concern. Control wrapped in love. On the drive home, memories surfaced uninvited. Being the responsible one. The one who stayed late, fixed mistakes, covered gaps. Ethan chased dreams. I handled consequences. When he failed, it was bad luck. When I succeeded, it was expected. At the firm, I was finally visible. I'd earned my role through quiet competence, not family politics. And yet, tonight, they spoke as if my life were a group project they could reassign. By the time I parked outside my apartment, my chest no longer burned. It steadied. Clarity does that. Inside, I opened my laptop, not to vent, not to cry, but to check something specific. Because if my family had already planned my future without me, I needed to know how far they'd gone. And whether they'd underestimated me again. The next morning, the cracks widened. I was halfway through my commute when Ethan called. No greeting. No warmth. "So, Mom says you're being difficult," he said, amused. "Why do you always have to complicate things?" I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. I didn't agree to anything. Silence. Then a laugh. "You don't need to. It's already decided." That sentence landed heavier than the meeting itself. By noon, my manager asked me into her office. She didn't accuse, she probed.
Carefully.
"Claire, I received an inquiry about your availability. From your family's company." My stomach dropped. They'd reached into my professional life without permission. "I'm not leaving," I said quickly. Too quickly. She studied me. I didn't think so. "But you should know," they sounded confident. That was when it clicked. This wasn't pressure anymore. It was maneuvering. Quiet calls. assumptions, moves made behind my back. That evening, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced, standing in the hallway like she still owned the space between my walls. "You're embarrassing us," she said calmly. "And if you keep resisting, people will start asking why." I looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time I understood. This wasn't about family. It was about control. And they were willing to take from me to keep it. The humiliation came 2 days later, dressed up as an opportunity. My mother invited me to what she called a strategy lunch, neutral ground, downtown cafe, public enough to keep voices low. I arrived to find my parents already seated. Ethan too. And across from them, my firm's senior partner. I froze. No one stood. No one explained. My mother smiled like this was generous. "We thought it'd be easier if everyone was on the same page," she said. The partner glanced at me, confused. "Your family said you'd be transitioning out soon." There it was.
Clean.
Casual. Surgical. Ethan added, "Claire's always been more supportive than ambitious." I felt heat crawl up my neck. The cafe buzzed around us, clinking cups, soft music, while my career was quietly rewritten in front of witnesses. I laughed once.
Short.
Sharp. "I'm not leaving," I said. My father sighed, disappointed. "Claire, don't make a scene." But the scene had already been made. Not by me. By them. And as I looked at the partner's face shift, from confusion to concern, I realized something important. They'd overplayed their hand. And for the first time, they knew it. I didn't cry after the lunch. That surprised me most. I walked 3 blocks, sat on a cold stone bench, and let the noise settle. Hurt arrived first, sharp, familiar, then something quieter slid in behind it.
Calm.
Not resignation. Precision. They thought exposure would corner me. That embarrassment would soften me into compliance. They didn't understand how I work when I'm underestimated. Back home, I opened a notebook I kept for real decisions. Not feelings.
Facts.
I wrote dates. Names.
Times.
The inquiry call to my firm. The drafted resignation. The lunch ambush. I wrote who was present and who heard what. Memory is slippery. Paper isn't. Then I listed leverage. My role at the firm wasn't ceremonial. I held client relationships Ethan's company desperately wanted. My family business was mid-expansion, fragile, reputation-heavy. And I had something else they forgot I possessed: patience. I didn't need to fight them loudly. I needed to let them move first and document every step.
I sent 1 email that night.
Polite. Neutral. Professional. I'm clarifying a few recent representations made on my behalf. No accusations. No emotion. Just a request for the truth. And truth, I knew, would do the damage for me. The response came faster than I expected. By morning, my inbox held 3 replies: my manager, the senior partner, and the firm's compliance officer. Each one careful. Each one concerned. None of them matched the story my family had been telling. At noon, I was asked to provide a timeline. So I did. I walked them through it slowly, methodically. The meeting. The folder. The unsigned resignation. The calls made without consent. The lunch staged as inevitability. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't assign motives. I let the facts stand upright on their own. By evening, the firm issued a formal notice. Any external communication about my employment was unauthorized and inappropriate. A quiet line, but a solid one. Then my phone rang. My father. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I clarified," I said. "You've complicated things," he snapped. "Ethan's deal is stalling." I leaned back in my chair, heart steady. "You complicated things when you spoke for me." Silence stretched. I imagined him recalculating. That night, an email went out to a potential investor, from me, CC'd properly this time, stating I would not be transitioning into the family business. The deal didn't collapse. It paused. And pauses make people nervous, especially those who thought they were in control. The pause did its work. 2 days later, my mother called, not to argue, but to negotiate. Her voice was softer, carefully arranged. "We may have moved too quickly," she said. "Let's reset." Reset meant retreat, and we both knew it. Ethan texted next. No jokes this time. The investors are asking why you're suddenly distant.
Distant.
Not absent. Not hostile. Just no longer available on demand. At the firm, something shifted too. The senior partner stopped by my office, closed the door, and said, "For the record, you handled this professionally." A pause. That matters. Back home, the family business began to wobble, not publicly, but enough. Meetings rescheduled. Calls unanswered. Momentum thinning. Then my father showed up at my apartment, standing where my mother had days earlier. Same hallway. Different posture. "We need you," he said plainly. Not "we love you."
Not "we're sorry."
Just need. I studied him, noticing how unfamiliar that sounded, because it was the first honest thing he'd ever said to me. And honesty, once exposed, has a way of changing the terms. I didn't invite him in. I told him I'd think about it, and watched his confidence flicker. Just for a second. I didn't think long. The next morning, I sent one final message to my parents, to Ethan, and to their investors.
Clear.
Measured. Unemotional. I declined any role in the family business and confirmed my full commitment to my firm. I also attached a brief clarification. Any past assumptions about my availability had been made without my consent. No blame. Just truth, documented. The twist wasn't what I did next. It was what I didn't do. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't chase their approval or wait for apologies that were never coming. I simply stepped forward, alone, and let the structure they built around my silence collapse under its own weight. Weeks later, Ethan's deal went through. Smaller. More expensive. My parents stopped calling as often. When they did, their voices were cautious now, unfamiliar with a daughter they could no longer overrule. At work, I was promoted. Quietly.
Deservedly.
Power didn't come from walking out that day. It came from realizing I never needed their permission to stay standing. They decided my future without asking me. I decided mine by leaving and never asking again.